All right. So we're going to discuss corporate governance. It should be on your screen now. You can see it now, right? Can you please see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So, yeah, Daniel and Gideon, please, if you can put your hands down so that I know that, when we start the lecture, before I know that you lifted your hand or something. Oh, Daniel, you want to say something? Your hand is up. Okay. All right. So we're going to discuss corporate governance, foundational issues. Then from then on, we'll move to another beginning of a chapter. Then, in that order. So if you look at I've sent you the slides. I hope you've got it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if we move to chapter 4, you would actually find this particular slide. So in this chapter, we're going to discuss legitimacy, what it means by legitimacy, and how do corporations actually achieve legitimacy, which is one of the key, factors. Faisal, do you want to say something?
Yes, I do, sir. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Regarding the slides that we will be discussing in class, what sort of weight should we place on those and those that won't discuss in class? Is there any particular reason why you choose some? I understand that the time constraint, but those that you choose doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, I get the point you're making. So
Look at.
Yeah, so the slides that I've chosen at the beginning of each of the way the book is structured. I sent you the book, right? I sent you the book that I adopted.
Yes.
The book is structured in parts. All right. I think they are in about 6 or 8 parts. And each of the parts begins with one particular chapter. So the chapter actually opens up that particular part discussions. So almost all the issues are actually concentrated in that particular chapter before the rest of the chapters actually touch on the issues one by one. I don't know whether I'm clear on that. And so the chapter that I've chosen,
Yes, sir.
are the opening chapters that actually address the issues in their entirety. Are you with me?
Yes, sir. That's fine, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Faisal. Okay. So first and foremost, well, that's the wrong language. Firstly, let's discuss the first slide, which is, legitimacy and corporate governance. In the first place, who has an idea on corporate governance? We're not looking for a particular definition, but your own understanding from your perspectives, i.e., from maybe your professional background, from your company perspective, how do you understand corporate governance? Yeah? I'm listening, please. What are your perspectives on corporate governance? Anyone? Okay, so let me just check this. Okay, so Elliot, your perspective on corporate governance.
Yes, Doc. Yeah, my perspective on corporate governance. From where, based on my industry, and the company I work in, I am of the view that corporate governance talks about the way of life, the culture, and the kind of philosophy that is behind the setting up and the operation of a business entity. And this has to sink down from the top to the least person, even if it is a cleaner in that organization. So once you enter their mission, vision, and culture, you see it right from the entrance of whatever entity organization you are entering to all the way to the top. and that should be instilled in the people.
Okay. So two points that we can pick up from Elliot's position. The corporate governance as a way of life that is embedded in the entire organization. That is some sort of a universality position where throughout the company, everybody must understand that particular way of life. All right, the governance, of that organization. Good point. Hilda, you lifted your hand, or your point has been made by Elliot. Okay, Faisal, let's hear you. Hello? Faisal?
Yes, sir. So it is a concept that defines the. Hello, sir.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So, yes, I'm saying that corporate governance, from my understanding, is a concept that defines the key organs in our to make up the owners, the board of directors who give the strategic direction to the company, and the management who do the day-to-day management of the company.
Okay.
In a bid to ensure that there is transparency, accountability, basically, I think transparency and
okay. Yeah. So Faisal has added structural part of it. That is identifying the key structures that actually make up the administration of the company. In order that there could be transparency, or everybody would know these various organs, and then of course their roles and then their responsibilities, that in that particular organization. So having to identify the key structures within the business, and then of course identifying their responsibilities, etc. That's a good point. All right. So we have Ajara. Your perspectives as well.
Good morning, Doc.
Hello, good morning, Ajara.
Good morning, Doc. Good morning, colleagues. Yes. Doc, when you talk about corporate, it refers to the entire structure of the organization. Vis-a-vis the rules, the principles, and even the spirit of the organization.
Yeah.
Like he said, it comes right from the head to the tail. Everybody in the organization contributes to the corporate organization. What you do, the light, the practices, the everything that governs and manages organizations. Corporate governance. Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much. That's a good point as well. All right, so Yakubu. So again, we have seen an emphasis on structure, all right, in the organization. I mean, from Faisal and from Ajara's perspective, we've seen emphasis on, knowledge, or the awareness of these structures and the way of life. Again, from Elliot's perspective, within the organization, we've seen all that. All right. Yakubu, let's hear you before we wrap up that.
Okay. What I will add to is that in every organization, we have what we call organizational culture.
Yeah.
And each organization has its way the structure and culture is managed.
Yeah.
And so the management system that is put in their vision and mission is what I would call corporate governance in terms of meeting their objectives and goals.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
So yeah, that's what I would add to.
Excellent. That's an extra addition. I mean, the emphasis, adding emphasis on the earlier point. All right, abracadabra. Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So mine will just be about of the companies, like the government regulatory bodies and so forth.
Okay, good point. All right, and Yakubu, you have already spoken. Romeo, last one, then we'll go to the next.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Romeo.
Good morning, Doc.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning, class. I want to be
Romeo, we've lost you. I don't know whether it's from my end or your end.
I hear you.
Okay, guys. Helen.
Hello, Doc.
Hi, I can hear you now.
Hello, Doc.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Yes.
that we have about distance learning. One of the problems that the country should solve. So those of you who have influence and power, maybe this is one of our concerns that we have to pass it on to address. Internet connectivity in this country is terrible. Anyway, yeah, so you were saying something, Romeo. I lost you.
I was saying that in brief, corporate governance is the spirit. Can you hear me, Doc?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I was saying that in brief, corporate governance is the spirit and the body. Wow.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Doc.
Hi.
Doc.
Hello, Doc. We can hear you.
Yeah, today is a very challenging day. Anyway, so
Yes.
Romeo was talking about the spirit and the body of the organization, all right? I don't know whether I heard him right, but I suppose that's what he was saying.
Yes, Doc.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, good. Okay, anyway, so let's discuss why do you think corporate governance is important? Why do you think corporate governance is important?
Hello, Doc.
Hi. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, Sally. Morning. Oh, thank you. It's
Hello.
Who is it?
Sorry.
Michael.
Okay, I've muted him. Yeah. So, why do we think that corporate governance is important? Eben, let's hear you. Yeah.
Yes. Corporate governance is important to ensure that there is direction and that to ensure direction for the organization,
Okay.
such that the organization will not stray from its objectives and goals.
Okay, excellent. So Eben says that because to ensure that there is a direction, that the company may not sway from its goals and then the objective that is set aside. That's why we must have corporate governance. That's one. Yes. Yeah.
So mine is a question. I just want to know the history of the concept called corporate governance. Is it relatively new? I mean, did it gain prominence in the past 20 years, or it has always been with us? Because it doesn't sit well in my head. This one.
Okay, I think that corporate governance, if you compare that to some of the managerial, managerial approaches and managerial, instances, it's relatively new. And when we say relatively new, it doesn't mean it was just yesterday. I don't know whether a lot of you remember the issue about Enron. How many of you have heard the word Enron before? Enron.
Yeah, Doc, myself.
I have heard of them.
Yes, I have. Yes, Doc, I have.
Right. Yeah, Enron was one of the biggest, firms, obviously multinational, but it's headquartered in the US. All right. Enron was actually involved in what we call, the cooking of the books, which people would say creative accounting. All right. Now, why were they doing that? They were doing that in order that they could look good on the stock exchange in terms of the capital market. And once they look good, people would invest in their business. In the end, the story is that Enron collapsed, and it was realized that their books weren't exactly what they said they were. All right. And from that story, from the Enron time, obviously there had been quite a number of other businesses. Andersen International, who knows Andersen International, the accounting firm? I think they have changed the name to the new name. I've forgotten what the new name is. Is that correct? How many of you have heard Andersen International? The accounting firm. I think they metamorphosed into one of the current firms. I don't know. I think it escaped me. But the story is that we found a lot of corporate lapses. Perhaps you can actually say deception. All right. Companies deceived the public that they were doing good, but in actual fact, they were not doing good. Obviously, the issue about Murdoch, I don't know whether a lot of you have heard about, is it Freddie Murdoch in the US?
Yes, I have heard of him.
Exactly. Now, he was in prison because he was, again, in the capital market. He was actually, so to speak, swindling people. But then when people actually were due for their monies, he would actually take other monies and send them, but not necessarily following the processes, of the business. So there were quite a lot of stories that actually brought corporate governance into prominence. Yeah. So that is basically the idea that we can have an oversight over the management, or attitudes and behavior of management that actually feed into the business, in order that the business would not deceive the public. And so the idea of corporate governance had been entered. So globally, corporate governance is not something that has been there with us. Although you may say that Africa perhaps had been late in coming to the party itself hadn't for long. All right. And so we almost, one could say that we're almost at par in terms of knowledge, of corporate governance with the Western world. Only that it looks like our businesses are still not entrenching corporate governance, behaviors and attitudes. But globally, it is not something that has been with us for long. I don't know whether that sits well with you in terms of your question. Yeah. the question be answered? Okay. Now let's go to Emmanuel. Emmanuel.
Thanks, Doc, for that.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, yeah. Yeah, Emmanuel, let's
Good
listen.
morning.
Good morning.
Sir, I wanted to find out whether you were listing up some companies. I wanted to resulted in establishment of corporate governance, and I wanted to find out whether men's good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Emmanuel, we've lost you. I don't know whether you guys have lost me or I've lost you guys. Hello? Emmanuel? Okay, welcome, my friends.
Yeah.
Today is going to be a very challenging day. But anyway, I hope we understand it. Just deal with it, right? All right, Emmanuel, we lost you.
Yes, sir.
I lost you. I don't know whether you guys lost me or I lost you, but I think today we're gonna have a very challenging day, but we can still deal with it. All right? Okay, so let's hear you, Emmanuel.
My question was about men's good. Yeah, the fact that you indicated that the actions of some companies have really resulted in the creation or emergence of corporate governance.
Mm-hmm.
So I was asking whether men's good could be one of them.
Okay, great. David says that, Emmanuel, you know the two of us are victims of this NAM1 plot. Why don't you leave?
No, he is the only one. He is the only one.
Okay, all right. That's for laughs, right? Okay, well, Emmanuel, you're right. So you would think that the actions of men's good, you see, and that's how come we would always say the developed world would always advance, and we are still where we are. All right. You would think that obviously the issues that we've had, i.e., even prior to men's gold, all right, we had the Siani based ones. What's the name? DKM. All right. We've had men's gold. Okay. We've had so many other issues that we can actually link it or we can trace them to even corporate governance practices. All right. Now the central bank took action by cleaning the system. All right. Now, after doing that, you would think that one of the outcomes would be that there will be prescription of a very strict corporate governance practices. And when these strict practices are announced, they are actually subjected to maybe national awareness. So you do not only address the business community, and which I suspect maybe the central bank has done, because I don't expect them to have sat down without actually coming out with some clear guidelines on how businesses are supposed to behave, all right? But if they have done so, perhaps they have done so only dealing with the key stakeholder, which is the business community. But that would be wrong, because I may not be within the business community, but tomorrow I may decide to set up a business. it means that I may not be in the catchment of the central bank's training and education of that particular, policy position. All right. So you would think that our institutions responsible would take certain actions to make sure that the entire society is educated. And then we are saying one of the fruit or one of the results of the cleanups, like NAM1 is a new policy framework that actually governs organizations how to behave from corporate, governance perspective, and then train people and then let people be aware or educate them using the media spaces. All right, but do any one of you see this happening in our country? No. In fact, I haven't actually seen anything like that. Even if they would want to use the educational institutions, there could be a report to us and say that these are some of the outcomes of the cleanup they did, including, corporate governance practices. I haven't actually seen anything at the business school. Are you with me? So you are very right, Emmanuel. The NAM1 issue and other issues that we've had must actually lead to an entrenchment or an education of corporate governance practices within our society, so that people will be aware, so that people will start, behaving as such. And then, of course, there must be, some kind of punishment or punitive measures that if people do not actually abide by those, they would face those consequences. I don't think that such has been communicated to the public, unless I'm wrong and any of you have information on some of these things. All right. Joshua, you want to say something?
Yes. Based on what you said and based on what Emmanuel said, I wanted to find out if the men's gold issue is not more of a regulatory issue than governance issue.
Well, you can attribute so many other issues to but I think Emmanuel was asking one part of the question. All right. So certainly is the issue of regulation. The issue of regulation, don't forget, comes from also the corporate governance perspective. You remember the case of Otabel and that bank. What's the name? I've forgotten the name of
Capital Bank.
Capital Bank.
Corporate governance.
Capital Bank.
Exactly. Corporate governance really came strongly in that there were people who were not qualified to sit at the board level. All right. Of course, NAM1's case, it's a regulatory issue. But the point is that regulatory issue is also linked to corporate governance issue, because if there were properly structured corporate governance processes, perhaps within the business itself, there could have been checks and balances before you get to regulator, because the regulator also is supposed to look at your corporate governance practices. Are you with me, Joshua? So it's actually interlinked,
Okay.
All right. We have PD. I tried to give chance to those who haven't spoken before. PD, before we move on to the next. Yeah, PD.
Yes, I believe your question was why corporate governance, or the purpose of corporate governance, right?
Yeah, well.
There's a question so that there's to ensure that management as well as even employees.
Yeah.
That's what I think. To ensure that the stewardship function of accounting is realized in every organization.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Thank you. I hope a lot of you heard it. I missed greater part of the PD because people won't stop calling me, and because of that, I get kicked out of the conversation a little bit. But yeah.
Good morning.
Okay. So PD.
Yeah, I mean, network.
PD.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I missed the greater part of what you said because people keep calling me. Sorry about that.
Yes, as I said that corporate governance exists so that you can ensure there is transparency and accountability amongst management and especially the board.
Excellent.
And
Yeah, that's a good point. Because you see, majority of times, owners of business and management sometimes find a way of, so to speak, without, for want of a better word, to cheat even the workers, all right? So one of the ways to actually regulate that is to have a very strong corporate governance system so that at least there's fairness, there's transparency and fairness across board, all right? So that owners won't cheat management won't cheat, employees, so to speak. So yes, to allow transparency and to allow fairness of organizations, that's why, we have corporate governance, strong corporate governance issues. All right, thank you. Guys, should I move on or I should allow one or two? Eben, let me hear you, then we can move on. And then, yeah. Eben, you want to say something? Okay.
Hello, sir. I think the first time I was my hand.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to the issue of legitimation. And remember, we're discussing the foundations of corporate governance, all right? And the issues that actually come to the fore. Whenever we discuss corporate governance, it's about legitimation, all right? How do companies actually achieve legitimacy? It means that how do companies actually achieve acceptance within society? And so the process of corporate, the idea of corporate governance and the formation and the structures of corporate governance are all done, in order that a business can achieve legitimacy, all right, or a business can achieve acceptance within society. And the acceptance that we're talking about is from different levels, all right? Acceptance from the perspective of the customer, acceptance from the perspective of the legal structure or the regulator, acceptance from the perspective of management, and even from ownership perspective, all right? So if you look at the word legitimacy, we say that it's a condition that prevails when there is a congruence between an organization's activities and society's expectation. Mind you, society here can be broken down into different sets, all right? Not only society as the place of existence or the geographical location where the business actually sits, but again, you can talk about society as, maybe a group of some other stakeholders like employees, or you could actually take society as even prospective employees, all right? So we're saying that for businesses to achieve congruence between what they do, all right, and society's expectation, the businesses must attempt to achieve legitimacy, all right? And the processes of achieving legitimacy is what we call legitimation, all right? Which means that there's a dynamic process, or there is certain activities and behaviors and structures that businesses must put in place in order that they can achieve that acceptance, that legitimacy. Are you with me? All right. Are you guys following the conversation?
Yes.
Okay. So this is why we're actually looking at corporate governance and the foundations of it, all right? Which means that we just don't do corporate governance for its sake, but we are doing corporate governance in order that we would be acceptable, or organization will be acceptable by its societies, diverse societies, and that's what we're talking about, all right? So as we explained earlier, corporate governance refers to the method by which a firm is being governed, directed, administered, controlled, and to the goals for which it is being governed. So we have said all this in our earlier discussion, so there's no need for us to belabor that point. So we're saying that how does an organization put one, structures, two, procedures or processes, three, rules and regulations that actually govern its operation, all right? and also makes it much more, transparent to everybody. Now, one thing that we probably didn't, or we weren't that clear, about is that when we say corporate governance and we talk about the parties or the structures involved in it, we don't only mean the internal structures or internal parties, but corporate governance always has internal and external, parties involved or structures involved. All right. So we should be very clear in our articulation of what we mean by corporate governance structures and then corporate governance, parties involved. So there will always be both internal and external parties that are actually involved in corporate governance structures. All right. Now, any questions or contributions before I move to the hierarchy of authority? PD, is your hand up?
No, sir. Let me.
Okay.
No, sir,
Any questions or contribution before I move to the hierarchy of it? Okay. So when we talk about corporate governance, and don't forget, we're saying that one of the key outcomes that we embark on corporate governance is for us to achieve what? Legitimation. All right? Legitimation or legitimacy. Okay? That's one of the key outcomes. And to do that or to achieve that legitimation, there are also structures of authority or hierarchy of authority that an organization is supposed to go through, to have that full legitimation. And one of the structures, as you can see, is that there must be a state charter. All right, that is, the company or the organization must actually ascribe itself to the state charter. And usually you can actually find the state charter, from your business registration details. The business registration certificate and the certificate of incorporation actually tells you what the country expects from you as an organization. All right. Those of you who own business or who have done, they have registered business before, can you please contribute to this particular part? The hierarchy of authority, we say that, you must be aware of the state charter. Yeah? Any contribution? Those of you who own businesses, what do you find in your certificate of incorporation and the certificate of registration? They give you some documents. Okay, Ajara.
Once again, good morning, Doc.
Good morning.
And good morning, colleagues. So I own a limited liability company.
Yeah.
And I was issued a Company Act certificate. Yeah. Of course, I was given the certificate of business registration, and also in the policy, in the documents, the Form 9, that's the Companies Act 1963, the regulations of a private company by shares.
Yeah.
So we have number 1, of course, the company name, the nature of the business, which the company is authorized to carry. Then number 3 talks about the pursuits, pursuant to Section 24 of the Company Act. Then number 5 of the Board of Directors, limited in accordance to Section 202 of the Act. Number 6 talks about the liability of the members of the company, which is limited. Then number 7 talks about the company to be registered with 100,000 shares of no par value. Then number 8 talks about the company, which is a private company accordingly. So it has ABC. That's about 8 pages, quite a number of pages.
Excellent.
I don't know if I should go through all.
Excellent.
But it talks about the shares and variations of rights. Shares and variations of rights. It talks about calls on shares. It also talks about transfer and transmission of shares. It also talks about capitalization issues and non-cash accounts and audits, general meetings and resolutions. It talks about vote of members, directors. It again talks about powers and duties of directors, effective and managing directors, secretaries and officers and agents, the sale, service of of documents, then winding up.
Winding up.
And that's it.
Excellent.
A summary of everything.
Excellent. Great job. Thank you. So which means that if you do not have that state charter, all right, those documents, certainly you don't achieve legitimation because nobody knows you, isn't it? So if you have a business and then you haven't registered it, which registration actually affords you the first line, all right, then of course, we don't know you. Society doesn't know you. Society doesn't know your operations. We cannot accept you as a corporate citizen or as a legitimate member of the society. Are you with me? So the first level of authority in terms of the hierarchy, you are supposed to have been a registered business and then familiarize yourself with the kind of things that Ajara actually just spelled out to us, all right? And that's the first line. Then, of course, you're supposed to have your shareholders document. That is a document that's supposed to outline the shareholders and then their responsibilities, their qualifications, etc. Then your board of directors, you're supposed to constitute board of directors. You're supposed to constitute a management. And of course, you're supposed to have employees. So the first line of legitimation is this particular structure. As a business, you're supposed to have your state charter, shareholders document, board of directors, management, and then of course employees, procedures and all those guidelines that actually talks about what an employee is supposed to do. So that's the first level. And remember, we are discussing foundations of corporate governance and how that leads to legitimation, all right? Or it makes us acceptable within the society. The next third is about the separation of ownership from control. Now, if you want to achieve legitimation or acceptance broadly, perhaps a business is supposed to go through that process as well. And then you see, pre-corporate period, there is an ownership, all right, owners and ownership, and there's the managers which actually exercise control process. Now, don't forget, owners of business may not necessarily be the managers of business. I mean, that is clear to all of us, isn't it? But there are times where we have owners as well as owner managers, which means that the owners actually manages the business by themselves. But we're saying that in order that we achieve legitimation, there must be that separation, all right? Why? Because when the two functions actually fuse together, there's likely to be lack of what they call transparency, because the person who owns the business is the same person who's actually controlling it. They have a high stakes or high interest in it. Now, that interest could actually come in the way of the interest of the workers if they have, or could come in the way of the interest of the regulator or of the state. Don't forget that you are responsible to the state through payment of taxes, through following what you call the lay down procedures, etc. Because you are the owners, at the same time the managers of the business, your interest could supersede that of the state's interest and that of the other stakeholders' interest, and so would not do the right thing, and that would actually come in the way of legitimation. All right. So you see, the pre-corporate period, somebody may own a business, or may form a business and still be the manager of the business. But then you must try as much as possible to move it towards, the corporate period where you have the shareholders, the board of directors, the management, all separated, from each other, or have what we call the separation of power. Okay, welcome back. Once again, I got kicked out because of a call. How many of you work in a telco or work with IT firms? Anyone works in an IT firm or telecommunication companies?
David.
David, do you work in an IT firm? Okay, I mean, you work in an IT firm. I think there's a business opportunity for you, right? I don't know whether you develop softwares or is there any way that you can develop something that we can block calls and still use our Wi-Fi? I do develop software. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Peter, so you develop softwares. Can you do a software that can actually block calls and still let us have our what do you call when you're using your phone as a, what's the name that you call it? Okay,
hotspot.
Yeah, using your phone as a hotspot. Okay, I will look into that. Yeah, I think that would be a huge business opportunity, isn't it?
Doc, please, I don't know which phone you are using, but I don't know if you can go to like a settings.
Yeah, I'm using the iPhone, the almighty iPhone.
Oh, okay. Okay, then I don't know if I can help you. if there's maybe with the dialer section at the settings.
Yeah.
You can maybe check if there's a call rejection.
Okay.
Or auto reject mode for calls.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Bridget.
Yeah, Bridget,
yes, Doc, you can
go but Doc, don't forget to reactivate it after the lecture, otherwise.
Yeah.
Doc, you can go to settings now and then go to phone.
Phone, so I mean.
Yeah, go to settings and then go to phone.
Yeah.
And then there is call barring. Yes, there is call barring.
Okay. I'm in settings now, but it says about software update, AirDrop, AirPlay and handoff, CarPlay, iPhone storage, background app, daytime. It doesn't seem to have that on here.
So you've gone to general.
So why don't you just put it on do not disturb? When you put it on do not disturb, even when the calls come in, your connection will just drop for a second, but it will still connect. And the call will be
flight mode.
Flight mode would disengage the
Go to do not disturb settings. There's do not disturb.
Should a bit.
Okay.
But I thought the call barring thing it should only be applicable to just a caller, one person.
David says
you actually need a third-party application, but again, Doc, maybe you should go on what is the iPhone version of Play. You should look. Maybe there is already an app for that. Just check around. It's possible someone has already developed something for
forward all your calls.
Anyway, the issue about barring calls is it has to be a specific caller.
Yes.
But again, to block your callers means that it has to give permission to your phone to block calls, and that is a background app. Most of the phone companies don't allow that because it interferes with the workings of the phone. So sometimes it's difficult to develop applications for that purpose. But if you want to block all calls, it's possible there are third-party applications out there, but then you are giving them access to your engine, and sometimes it could also cause more problems.
Privacy.
That's the biggest issue with yeah.
All right, great.
But for now,
So, Doc, I think you can let's manage it. Let's manage it as it is.
Yeah, we'll manage.
It's for only it's for only today.
And then you see how
I don't think
match. You see how big match.
Papa, happy Father's Day.
Can you imagine when Doc is trying to prevent all those calls you are going to use your father?
Yeah. So, Doc, we would bring you a 4G router. Would that work for you?
That would be fantastic.
Yes.
Isn't the business school supposed to provide
within
all
the week, we'll try and get you a 4G router so that you would always be online, and still use your phone.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Is it for free?
Yes, for free.
So that I can also subscribe to it.
From me.
Okay.
I have
then,
to look for it though, because I started to get mine. So.
But guys, you see how business opportunities, arise.
So I'm also here. So if you wouldn't mind, you can add me to the list.
As for you, you have to pay. This one is to help all all of us. So if you want it for your personal gains, then you have to pay.
But if I also don't come online, it will not help all of us. So my participation also helps. So.
No, can I ask you a question?
Great point. Great point. Okay.
No, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you can ask. Yeah.
The university sent us a newsletter, I think yesterday, talking about doing studies online. But it is clear to me that the university itself is not prepared for online teaching. You can't be using your phone as a hotspot when you have a lecture. Are you not supposed to be provided with the necessary tools to be able to do your work?
Yeah, fantastic.
I mean, talking about corporate.
Yeah, you're fantastically right. Yeah, the problem is that the country itself is not prepared. I had a conversation with one of the IT guys in the UGCS. All right, just this. It's surprising we're talking about this. Just was it yesterday? Just yesterday, before I came to Takrady, and then I was asking him that because the country is moving towards digital, as the government has announced, etc. I think this is an opportunity for them to actually, get resources to push our infrastructure to a level that we can. Because obviously there's a COVID support money coming from World Bank and from World Health Organization, etc. I'm sure you've heard them, right? The government is going for money.
The university?
No, the government. The government is going for money from the World Bank for this COVID issues, all right? So I was in the frame that because of the situation, by the time we are out, we probably had developed capacity because we were just pushed into it because of COVID, like every other business, right? So by the time we are out of it, the university had developed capacity to be able to even do distance education in terms of a graduate level, all right? But the IT guy told me that they have actually been there several times, and the Ministry of Education has no resources for them. He was telling me they have only one server, all right? They have only one server. Even that server just came, recently. That they pushed, thinking that at least there will be a support because the Ministry of Education is emphasizing that we move online, etc. But that support is not coming through. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, the university is not well prepared. Of course, we're trying, but we're not well prepared for the online because one, it was abrupt, it was impromptu. Two, the resources that are supposed to come to actually upgrade the system are not coming from the government perspective. And don't forget, this is a government institution, All right, the university is a government institution. So we are in a fix. All right, we're saying one thing from public policy perspective, but the actions and then the activities that we're supposed to do to support that public policy is non-existent. So this is what is happening. I don't know what I've answered your question. I mean,
yes.
Doc, this is Bridget. I think University of Ghana has even tried in this situation.
Yeah.
Because the COVID just came as a surprise to everyone, and we can't just start and then be perfect.
Yeah.
We will have to go through these stages. So I think so far the university has done well. I had a discussion last night. I overheard that even other universities haven't gotten this far as University of Ghana. So
Yeah.
I think
thank you.
small. We'll get it. Yeah.
Good. And to be very
Sure.
and not
So
slightly.
you are proud to be a student here.
Of course.
Yeah.
You are proud to be part of this family.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And to be honest, not to slight other schools. I know for a fact that majority of my colleagues in other schools had not been engaging their students online. To be very honest.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's why government was actually saying that some schools must go to school. I mean, the final student must go to, because they didn't have infrastructure to actually support online teaching. You know, and I hear David, you say that UGBS should be business-minded so that we recruit more foreign students. Now, I will not discuss a lot to you, but I sit on the international student team, and I know some of the issues that we are having in terms of international student recruitment. I mean, we are very business minded. Don't forget the business school. And there had been a lot of discussions between ourselves. I mean, majority of us have a very business oriented, approach. And that's why we teach at the business school. But the hurdles and then the constraints that actually surround every public institution is real at the university level as well. All right. And so it makes it difficult for people to see us do more than what, to see us do more. We ourselves want to do more, but because it's a public institution, that willingness to do more has no, power. Like there's no power behind that willingness to do more in order that we can do more. Are you with me? David, I don't know whether you understand the point I'm making. Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right, thank you, Bridget, for letting us know that you are very happy to be with us. We appreciate that, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well. All right, thanks. So we're at separation of ownership. All right, and we're discussing separation of ownership, and we're talking about the problems that owner managers actually present. The idea that when there is owner manager, the interest of ownership actually even sometimes precedes the interest of management. All right. So somebody owns a business, and because they own the business, all right, the continuation of the business is not even a matter of concern to them. So they go in and they take a chunk of money, and in their thinking, so they put the money in their pocket and they go and blow it, forgetting that the business needs to survive. So the principle of, the principle of, continuity, business continuity, is actually swallowed by the principle of ownership, belongingness, etc. So even at that pre-corporate level where there is ownership and management all infused together, there's a problem of interest, one of them surpassing the other. And so it becomes a corporate governance issue. So we try to say that businesses must move from pre-corporate period or pre-corporate attitudes and behavior to corporate attitudes and behavior, where there is a clear, distinction or separation of power. And remember, last week we talked about what we call pluralism, isn't it? Where there is a separation of power, and power resides in different, kind of arms of organization or institution. So when you move to corporate period, you're actually separating power, and you are actually residing power in these different organs. And as we explained earlier, we said corporate governance is about what? Identifying different parties or different organs in an organization, and then making sure that they actually have roles and procedures and etc. that they exercise on the business. So this separation of power between ownership, management, and the board is what we recommend, which is towards corporate governance perspectives. All right. But that in itself also brings an issue of agency problems. All right. For example, when there is a separation of power, shareholders are actually having one perspective, board directors have another perspective, and then management have also a control perspective. Now, what are some of the agency issues that we anticipate, even when we move from pre-corporate to corporate section, where we're actually emphasizing on and saying that perhaps can help us, have corporate governance behaviors and attitudes. What are some of the agency problems that you think we can have or we should experience? Or we may experience, if I should put it that way. Yeah? Agency issues. When we move towards the corporate period or the corporate side of the ownership structure or the separation of power. Pump up, yeah, PD.
Yes, sir. The way you see management only interested in profit. They do everything. Profit.
Exactly, profitability.
Their conscience is always
excellent. Now, why? That's a very good point raised by PD. Why would management be only interested in profitability?
Yes, sir, because they may get bonuses.
One, because they may get bonuses, and two,
promotions, something.
Promotions, good point. Whoever who wants to add to PD's point, why would managers be interested in only profitability before you come to your own point? Yakubu, do you want to add to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, one of the agency problems, just like my fellow student mentioned, is about profitability.
Yeah.
The manager employed now oftentimes think of enriching themselves personally than meeting the goals and objectives of the organization itself.
Okay, good point.
So you see that at some point, they always try to find some allowances, institute some allowances and super diem for themselves.
Okay.
Which actually in the long run do not help the organization itself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Elliot, you wanted to add?
David, is it true?
Doc.
Yeah.
So what I'm also thinking in addition to profitability is that most of these managements are given very hefty KPIs as their markers in terms of performance.
Excellent. Yeah.
In terms of performance.
So the management becomes profitability oriented because that's the key measurement framework that they use to assess their activities or their effectiveness. And so they will be profitability driven. Of course, in addition to their own interests like bonuses, promotions, and because the key KPI is about profitability, management is always looking at that angle. Good point. Now, abracadabra. Or David, I think somebody mentioned your name. So
I think Elliot has mentioned the point I was about to say is due to main KPIs which are being measured for the MDs or the management team. So yeah.
Okay, great point. David, there's a point you wanted to make that somebody was mentioning.
Yes, and one of the KPIs is also to ensure that there's high reserves for the company. So that's why they are interested in profitability.
So that they can fall on in times of COVID, for example.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good
Thank
point.
you.
So you realize that one of the agency problems that we have when there is even separation of power is because of interest. Management, for example, is predominantly thinking about profitability because they need to have something on reserve to call on. They need to have their own bonuses. That's the only KPIs that owners actually understand, that you're driving profitability, and as a result, use it to promote them. And that's why management becomes so preoccupied with what? Profitability, which is one of the agency issues. Yeah, you want to say something?
So why is that a problem? Isn't what the shareholders want? Is it not what they want that they put in the KPIs? Isn't that what the board demands? So why is that a problem?
Yeah, so we're looking at corporate governance, and we're looking at the separation of power and the agency problem that brings. Remember, corporate governance and the issue of business and society. Remember, this is business and society. It means that the business has other objectives other than profitability, which management is predominantly driven by. And that's why it's a problem. So because they are predominantly driven by profitability, it then affects other objectives of the business, like staff, empowerment of staff, what do you call motivations,
welfare,
staff welfare, like society, as we were discussing last time, sustainability issues, etc. I don't know whether you understand that, yeah.
CSR.
Yeah, do you get it?
Okay, I do.
Yeah. All right. Any other? Okay, Daniel.
Doc, I have a question. Is it always the case that management falls in a negative light when we are talking about these agency problems?
No, because the word is agency problems. Are you with me? Because the word is agency problems, that's why we're looking at it from that perspective. But of course, there are other good sides of management, isn't it? But we are talking about agency problems that actually emanate, that actually emerges, when we're talking about separation of power and the interest that actually resides in each of these powers. Am I
okay? Maybe 50%. I'm hoping it will be clearer as we go along.
Okay, great. Okay, who else? Yakubu. Your hand is up, or it was on the first one. Ajara, let's hear you.
Yes, Doc. Doc, actually, it's very important for every company to be in business. Like it is said, if a business is not making profits, then it's a hobby. It's not a business.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, profitability is actually what you use to measure importance of the company. And when it comes to like equity investors and all, they look at your profitability. Earlier on, we were talking about the governance, the corporate governance, and we said that is a way of life. Everything about the organization reflects the corporate governance. Personally, if I go to a company, one of the things that I use to indicate that the company is actually making profit or is in good standing is actually the car park. I look at the car park, I look at the cars at the car park, then I know, okay, the staff in this company are well treated. The staff in this company are well paid. You look at the dressing from the receptionist to the staff to the officers and even the cleaners, how they dress, how they come across. It speaks a lot about the company.
Yeah.
So when you are meeting investors, they look at all those things. So I it's very important. And we discussed earlier on that even making profits in itself is a corporate social responsibility.
Yeah.
Because the more the company makes profits, the more the company is able to pay their workers. Their workers are also happy. They're able to pay their children fees. They're able to maintain their families, and there's that ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
So profitability cannot be overemphasized. It's a must.
Okay, agree. Yes. So profitability, but the question was that when management is so much driven by profitability, then there's a high tendency that other interests will be subsumed by that profitability thinking. All right, I can understand the connection between profitability and welfare of staff, but it doesn't naturally flow like that. All right, that theory that when when the elite in society actually get more, it actually sprinkles down to the other people. It doesn't actually work that way. So yes, the business could be making a lot more profit, but not necessarily taking care of their staff. And that's why your observation is very, very much. I think I like that observation that, by going to the car park of the people, what do you see? Do you see nice cars? Do you see them dressing well, etc.? But again, there could be gaps and there could be loopholes in that observation. That's why we have to actually go a step further, to look at that. And we're not actually saying that profitability is bad, but we're looking at the instances where management, interest, as a result of this corporate governance structure that we are looking at, management interest actually supersede management interest, especially in profitability, supersedes other interests such as staff welfare, etc. That's the point that we're actually making. So maybe we have to actually look at the contrast and the contrast that we create. All right. Good point. Anyway. All right. Who else wants to say something? Peter.
Yes, Prof. So I wanted to differ a bit from the earlier submission about profitability and how it reflects in a car park, for instance. I do think, again, I think you made a good point when you talked about the corporate governance and the purpose of, the organization. Every single organization on earth here is created to achieve a mission. Mm-hmm. And for most of the owners of or stakeholders of the company, it is important for you to understand that every company has an exit strategy. For instance, I can see, since I've actually been watching Uber for the past 3 years. I don't think they've posted any profit. Mm-hmm. Actually, they are making a lot of losses. Mm-hmm. But you can see that it is growing globally everywhere. Mm-hmm. I don't think every company is meant to make profit from the word start. And sometimes some companies might not even make profit until they are sold off. Mm-hmm. An example is even WhatsApp. When WhatsApp was like making not even a dime from its operations, they were able to sell to Facebook for billions of dollars. So sometimes you have to look at it that maybe the operational profits is not exactly what the owners are looking for. Yeah. And the second thing I want to mention is that most often you would not see the culture of the company. You cannot see the welfare of the company at the car park, because for instance, if you come to my company, yeah, we have about 50. We try as much as possible to share resources. You will not come to when you come to our office, you will not see glamour. You will not see people wearing suits and all those things. But inside them, they feel happy to come to the office. They feel happy to do what they are doing, because our main focus is not to show off wealth, but to be able to bring more technology, more innovation into helping people to do what they have to do to to also be productive. So sometimes you need to study the organizational mission, what they want to achieve. You need to study the values of the organization, and sometimes it's also linked to the values of the owners. Yeah, you will look at the owners, and then you will see that, okay, this company, you will not look at their workers and see glamour, but still there is welfare. The people are happy to work there. They are happy to work 24 hours without even sleeping. Yeah. So these are some of the dynamics of organizational behavior. Maybe we can talk more, but I think
Peter, the point that you're making, which Ajara actually made earlier about, David said that it's outside gentility, home cry. Ajara, your principle that you can people's in a car park, and then he says that you want to avoid high taxes. Peter, David says you don't want to show that glamour because you want to avoid high tax. Anyway, that's just by the way. All right, Nigel, before I come to Abracadabra.
Yes, sir. I'm kind of a bit confused because we're talking about agency problem where the interest of management and the interest of the owners, are not at par.
Yeah.
So if and we're indicating the fact that managers want to, make profit so that they'll get bonuses and all that, but don't shareholders also? What is their interest? Don't they also want to make profit?
I think
so how does that bring?
we're not only dwelling on between managers and shareholders, but we're talking about the various organs, all right? So shareholders, board of directors, managers, obviously employees, all right? So when we talk about the predominance of profitability, which is the management's predominance, we are contrasting that with perhaps employee welfare. Are you with me? Not necessarily contrasting that with shareholders, because shareholders would very much be interested in that profitability as well, all right?
Exactly.
And would want to see managers control that. But of course, when it comes to board of directors, they may have a different preoccupation. Are you with me? So, so we're looking at the agency issues and contrasting with other arms of the structure. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right.
But the point where, excuse me, sir.
Yeah,
so the point where the agency problem arises because shareholders are the owners and the managers, management control. Is there a point where there's some confusion? Because it will definitely not be where they both want to make profit.
Yeah, I think that one of the agency issues between shareholders and management, all right, could also be appointments, all right? Could also be appointment because, for example, sometimes because of management's thinking and control about profitability, they probably could actually make certain appointments which may not sit down well with shareholders. Are you with me? So sometimes when it comes to, the staffing, all right, of what do you call, the business, shareholders could actually, make certain recommendations. So try and push this guy in. But from management perspective, that competence is not there. And so they may differ, all right? So they could be issues from that perspective. Are you with me?
Okay. Yeah, very well. Thank you.
Abracadabra. Let me come to you.
So I think you mentioned it. I just wanted to have cited an example of how people, the managers would want to make more profit. So in the case where the board is actually responsible for doing more of the corporate social responsibilities, it is the same money they will need to take from the business to actualize those projects. So in the case where you are not making profit and the business is not actually doing well at this point, do we now have to take out the money to do the corporate social responsibility? So it will always boil down to a good business making much more profit or making meat. Other than that, every other project or KPI set by the shareholders and all that will not be achieved. So it's not as if managers are more inclined to making profit. Yes, it's good because I think it holds everything. It's more like the bloodline of the business. Because if the business doesn't have cash, then other things doesn't come into play.
Okay, excellent. Good point. All right, anybody has any other point? Agency issues? Otherwise, we'll move to the next point. Agency issues.
Question. Question.
Yeah.
I think this is the right time to ask this question about this whole corporate governance thing. Now, with the separation of ownership from control, my first question is, who appoints the board? Isn't the ownership or the management? I mean, I'm looking at Africa, which is of my main concern. Let's leave the Europeans out. In Africa, a board of directors.
Yeah.
So I'll cite the banking issue as an example. Those defunct banks, most of the board members were shareholders of the bank.
Yeah.
Major shareholders of the bank. You spoke about legitimacy, that corporate governance has come about so that businesses can get some legitimacy.
Yeah.
considering the environment that they are in. So here is the case. I have the board chair is my body. He also has shares in the company, so he's protecting his interests. Mm-hmm. Isn't this whole corporate governance thing distrustful for us Africans? Because we see the coach and the team in bed with the referee, and you are telling me legitimacy. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether you can see through my confusion.
Yeah.
You have a very good point, Yao. Yes.
Yeah, because I'm totally lost here. Even in my own company, I am lost. All those people who are sitting in the board of directors, who are supposed to have oversight over the executive committee or management, they are all in bed together. And the major shareholders in the company are part of the board or the management in one way or the other.
It's true. A perfect example is the capital bank and bridge capital.
Who can solve your problem before I come in? Abracadabra, you want to respond to that before I come in? Who can solve your
Yes, sir. So, I was just citing a perfect example of what he has mentioned is the collapse of the capital bank and Beige. So most of the decisions that were taken that was supposed to be left for management to take were taken by the board of directors. And as he said, the managers themselves and the board of directors are still the same people. So in this case, it is to their benefit, but not to the business. Because if Bank of Ghana had issued out a letter to them telling them of how they are borrowing and their monies and all that are going on, and that they need to revamp and put in money and all that, then I totally agree with you there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay,
Sir, may I come in?
Oh yeah, come in.
Yes, sir. What I'm saying is, okay. What I'm saying is, the cases they have cited is a matter of what ought to be versus what the reality is. That is why he mentioned that in Africa, because then it means that we have poor corporate governance here in Ghana or in Africa. Mm-hmm. So it is a matter of what ought to be versus what the reality is in Africa.
Excellent. Great point. Now, Elliot, before I come in.
Yes, Doc.
Before Elliot come in, let me let you in on some back conversation. I'm telling David said something, and I'm telling him that I really like this class, the intellectual discussion that we have. That's why I sometimes let the class go, because I really enjoy the class so much. The discourse is so rich. So sometimes you feel like you are even okay if we don't exhaust the slides. All right. So that's a plus to you guys. Elliot, you can go ahead.
Yes, Doc. To help in his confusion, I think it's more of what we are seeing because of that breakage and the linkage we are having in terms of corporate governance and the board of directors deleting their authority or control over managers, or even in a situation whereby it's the same group of people who are doing that. That is why we have the likes of Beiges and the capital banks, which are collapsing here and there. Now, the question we should be looking at is that ask ourselves as Ghanaians or as Africans, even let's just limit ourselves to Ghana, how many companies, indigenous companies, have lived past their second and third generation?
Sure.
Second, third generation. So we don't see much indigenous companies that have gone past their second and third generation. And this is as a result because of poor corporate governance issues. Taking into consideration some of my, let me say, I'll use my company as an example, whereby you have board of directors and you had the managers. Now, there was a serious issue in the sense that the manager goes to tell the board that due to regulatory issues, the board cannot have some sort of control or cannot be interfering with the operations of the business. Now, fast forward, less than a year or two, a company is plunged into a huge financial debt. We go into it, we take things piece by piece. What happens? Management is taking decisions for its own best interest. Now, because the board is not interested in the daily operations, or for better want of word, was scared by managers saying that you cannot interfere because we are regulated in a special way, and therefore we need to have some sort of autonomy from what you are doing. Company is plunging serious debt. The managers are nowhere to be found, in quotes. And now the few people who are, who give off their best to see the company get to its next feet or footing are now suffering for that. In this case, the board of directors and the managers are two separate people. But the core issue here is the corporate governance structure. It's non-existent. We do not even see it in our daily lives. We can even narrow it down to our various homes, and we can put down the structures and how we do that. We can narrow it down to every facet of our lives. So the point that I see that we are making here is that once that element of structure, the way of life, the culture of any entity is non-existent, irrespective of whether it is the board or the managers who are co-owners or who are co-operators, it is a big issue and it is a disaster which is awaiting to happen. So that is what I think.
That's a fantastic point, mate. Faisal, come in before maybe I drop in at some point.
Doc, I think the point I wanted to make has largely been made by Elliot, except to add that the concept of corporate governance is very, very crucial, but it is also a cultural issue as far as we are concerned in this country. Because if an entrepreneur starts a company by himself from his own sweat, from a very small corner, and he builds it to a point, he can't see himself not being the CEO, at the same time not being the chairman of the board. And so most CEOs are actually called chairman. So the three organs, which is the shareholders on one side, the board of directors, which is supposed to be, and let me emphasize this point, the board of directors are supposed to show fidelity to the company and not even the shareholders, because there's the potential for even shareholders' interest to conflict with that of the company. Then you also have the management. Now, if you have the owner who is a majority shareholder, at the same time the board chairman, at the same time he also plays a key role in the management of the company. For such a company, as far as I'm concerned, it is not a proper corporate organization. It is a one-man business. And one of the deficiencies of a one-man business is that the moment that businessman falls sick, the business also falls sick. So if you go to such companies, simple decisions, let's paint our building, let's reduce the price of this, let's do anything, will be stored until this businessman always must be the one to even sign checks, to pay this and all that. So virtually, that is how come as of now, after so many years after independence, the day before I said I was discussing this with someone, not a single company from Ghana, has been able to step foot in any even West African country to show a certain metal. It was UT Bank, that's right. And I was so excited that UT Bank was in Nigeria. Until this same issue that I'm saying. There's the one who started the company was the chairman, was the everything, and so the decisions he took. Because what happens is that, for instance, when people needed loans, they will go to him as a person in his house and say, "Look, I need to so and so and so and so." And he looks at the relationship. You are the brother of this or the brother of that, or you are my nephew. Look, I trust you. You let's come back. Let's just give you the money. And the person go and the person copy. So the normal procedure that they would have used by going through the CEO or management for them to use their professional expertise to advise whether the loan should be advanced to you or not, or an amount which is above the management that should go to the board, all those internal processes are scrapped aside. And that is what corporate governance is supposed to do, to ensure that we conduct the business in a manner that will ensure the survival and the progress of the business, irrespective of who is involved. But in a culture sadly, that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah.
So when your mentor makes the point, I see the law in action and the law as it is on the books.
That's right.
The law as it is on the books is what will help us to grow.
Yeah.
But the law as is that the CEOs or the owners or the founders of companies will just not allow all these things to work. So that's my contribution, sir.
Excellent. Fantastic. And I was going to tell you that there is a local song in, at least I know a lot of you may know it. It says, you know, that kind of thing. You know, corporate governance.
David, help us sing it.
You should add the second verse to it. You should add the second verse.
The second verse.
David.
Yeah. So the corporate governance thing, all right, is it's actually something that is supposed to help us, and as earlier said, develop generational businesses. But we think that because they are not enforced, you know, we try to just have it, and then of course on paper it says you have to appoint such a person, you have to appoint it, but then we use our own thinking and our own wisdom to choose people who think they should be there. In the end, we end up actually collapsing our businesses. Don't forget, it may even come to haunt you from a legal perspective, and that's what we have actually seen. A lot of businesses and a lot of directors actually being hauled to the courts because of the infringement on all this. So yes, you may think that you have the power to choose, and you're not actually going to abide by the regulators' guidelines. In the end, it would end up coming to bite you, and we'll have the situation as we have now. Like we said, our companies are not going international, our companies are not going to be generational, and we are still in this chaos. So we may think that yes, we have the ability to do it, to sidestep what is supposed to be, but in the end, you get it. So yeah, I saw.
Doctor, can I come in?
Yeah, Yakubu, come in.
Okay, I just want to add to what Fisher said.
Yeah.
I know a Club 100 company in Accra here.
Yeah.
They have all the functional department all right.
Yeah.
But before they can even issue a check, it is the business owner and the business owner's wife's signature that goes into a check before the check can work.
No. Where is this happening?
I won't mention the company name.
No, you send us a private note. Send us a private note.
Yakubu, don't mention it. I also have a
Yakubu, for this one, I will not agree with you.
Send us a private note. We want to investigate.
Yakubu, don't mention it. I have experience in that.
I won't mention the name.
Don't mention it.
So is the spouse, the wife, in what capacity is the wife signing or playing the role of a signature?
That is what Peter said.
The
governor is supposed to be in place, but they choose to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Well, Doc, let me bring this across. In my company, I will not mention the name, but it is when we talk about the top companies in the world, it is there. It is actually the biggest in its segment. When I joined the company, the CEO was going on retirement the next year. 3 years down the line, after retirement, the CEO is now the board chair. And when the CEO was in his chair, his deputy was the one who became the CEO when he left.
Wow.
So it's like a Putin-Medvedev scenario.
Yeah. They
exactly. So they are also doing it, but how come theirs work and ours is not working?
Okay, so that's a big question, but perhaps it could be that it's only the two positions, but the rest of the structures are intact. So the rest of the structures are actually keeping checks on that. So if the impact of these two is not very, very heavy on the rest of the systems, I think it would work. You know, because Medvedev, what's his name again? Sorry, okay, you know, Medvedev.
So you continue.
Yeah, Medvedev, and then from their arrangement, they still democratic, all right? Because the Dumas, which is their parliament, actually allows that. They actually allow that to happen, and so they still control. They still have some democratic controls, or some good democratic arrangements, ongoing even with that. So perhaps your organization, that leadership change is allowed by the corporate governance guidelines, all right? And then they do not really wield too much power or influence over the rest of the structure. So that could work. Anyway, all right, let's move on. Abracadabra, do you want to say something last, and then we can move on to the next? I think we just about.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. So you can see on the slide CEO pay and firm performance relationship. That's one of the corporate governance issues that usually we hear that in the Western countries, but we don't hear that so much in our own society. But if we want to actually conform to corporate governance, some of these discussions must come to the fore, all right? How much the CEO is paid is actually linked to firm performance. And that's what we actually discussed earlier about the profitability, all right? The management is so, overly concentrated on profitability because and they're paying not the actual money that they get, but the other incentives that actually come in addition to the actual money, make them overly concentrated on profitability. And when we want to talk about legitimacy, all right, or achieving legitimation, CEO pay is one of the key questions that the people raise, especially civil society, especially consumer groups, and especially regulators, all right? They raise issues about CEO pay. But in Ghana, I don't think CEO pay is very, very transparent or visible to a lot of us. In fact, one of my colleagues, one of our workers at the business school, told me a funny story. He said that in the corporate world, when CEOs are actually going for negotiations about the organization's pay, they don't go with their pay, right? They go with the pay of the subordinates and say that they need 100% increment, all right? Because this money that maybe the cleaner is receiving is too small. But guess what? The catchword is when the institutions or the board actually permits that 100% increment, it affects everybody. So if the cleaner actually gets 100 Ghana cedis and they give him 100% increment, he's getting what, 200. But the CEO, don't forget, is getting 100,000 Ghana. So 100% increment, he gets what, 200,000 Ghana. All right. So you realize that most top level, top hierarchy, do not necessarily feel comfortable discussing their own pay in the public domain. And I doubt if most of you actually know how much your CEOs actually think. All right. Yet this is one of the key issues that we must confront discussing corporate governance. Now, you want to say something? Any question or contribution to this point?
Yes, sir. Doc, this one is like a question. Hello?
Yeah, let's listen to you, Yakubu.
Doc, this one is like a question.
Yeah.
On the pay issues,
yeah,
the state corporations like Cocoa Board,
yeah,
I can't understand how the state pays a CEO about 80-something thousand Ghana cedis a month.
Mm-hmm.
And even the president pay is not up to that.
It's never true.
It is never true. Which CEO is he talking about?
Which CEO is he talking about?
A Cocoa Board.
Which CEO?
No,
which CEO
are you talking about?
Cocoa Board.
Oh,
it is never true.
He's talking about
Opuni was taking around 6 something, but I think they cut that money down when Hackman became the board chair.
Okay.
But it's still up there. It's still up there. It's not down to 20 or 10,000.
Relax. He's
Oh,
a
but
CEO. You expect him to take 10,000.
it's 10,000.
Cynthia, we haven't heard your voice before. Can you say something? You said it's not true.
A company that brings in $2 billion.
$2 billion
I am following what they are saying, but what I want to say, I know.
They want put on man if you know it's or the boom move. Hey, what are you talking
Yeah,
about?
but let's Cynthia talk now.
A company that brings in $2 billion
conversation, but I don't
syndicated loan.
think that any CEO is paid 80,000.
Hey, relax. The governor of the Bank of Ghana takes 90,000. Relax.
It doesn't take 80,000, please.
It takes 90,000 plus. Relax, madam.
It's not
That is
true.
confirmed. Governor of the Bank of Ghana.
It is true.
I'm saying it's not true.
It is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have credible evidence.
Relax.
Okay, guys.
You don't know, but
You can go and check the fact, and maybe next class we can come and prove it. All right. So
No, Doc. In our case, there is no facts to check. Our CEO, our chief executive, doesn't take that up to that amount. He said how much? 80,000 Ghana cedis.
okay. So the point here that we are making is that CEO pay is actually linked to legitimacy. All right, and is linked to corporate governance issues because the CEO pay actually plays a role in firm performance and firm. There's a relationship between CEO pay and firm performance. And the performance we're not only looking at from profitability perspective, but we're looking at also employee welfare. All right, we're looking at continuity of the business. We're looking at shareholder interest, etc. Are you with me? So we say that if we want to achieve legitimation, or we want to discuss the legitimacy of the business, and remember, legitimacy here means there is a congruence between organizations' activities and society's expectation, all right? And then we're looking at acceptability of the business amongst its society, diverse societies. CEO pay must be discussed because if it's outrageous, society will scream and society will question, all right, whether that has a relationship with the value that society is receiving. So we must, and when we have to go to the business table or when we go to the corporate, or board level table and we are discussing it, we shouldn't forget that the issue of corporate governance has everything to do with CEO pay and how transparent we must be with the CEO's pay, all right, in that conversation. We shouldn't shy away from that. But in most cases in Ghana, we do not actually have that conversation. We haven't even heard or we hardly hear how much the CEOs actually take. But we always know how much the downtrodden people actually take in our society. Is that okay? Is the point clear to you guys? Romeo, you just say All right.
That's Doc.
Yeah. So I hope the point is clear. Okay.
Yes, it's clear, Doc.
Yes, it's clear.
So some of the issues that internationally they discuss about CEO space about stock options, all right? So the pay is not only in amount of money, but sometimes the CEOs are actually given options to actually have the allowances in stocks. We have backdating, we have spring loading, we have bullet dodging. All these are some kind of, frameworks that are used to determine CEOs' benefits, all right? And sometimes it may not come to us clearly, and that's the issue of transparency we talk about. They actually frame them in a certain way that the general public can't even fathom, or the people can't even appreciate, let alone for them to question.
Hello, Doc.
Yeah, David.
Hello, Doc.
Yeah.
Please kindly go back to the previous slide. I couldn't understand the terminologies well.
Yeah.
So I could use them in my conversations.
Okay. So stock options, backdating, spring loading, bullet dodging are all certain frameworks that we use to determine CEO's benefits. All right. They use to couch CEO's benefits in them. Stock options, as it says, it allows the recipient, that is the CEO, to purchase stock in the future at a price it is today. So, for example, the business, there's the stock market, or capital market, we can actually, predict the future prices, all right, and see that maybe in the next 3 months or in the next year, the stock is going to do well, all right. Now, obviously, if the stock is not doing well now, the prices are low, all right. So one of the ways that corporate organizations actually use to, dodge, all right, some of these benefits is allowing the CEO to buy, future stock at today's price, meaning that they end up gaining, if you understand what I mean, all right. They end up gaining on the stock. Backdating allows the recipient to purchase stock at yesterday's price, resulting in immediate wealth creation. All right. So you know that yesterday's price, perhaps the price was just, let's say, 1 cedi per stock. All right. And then they allowing the CEO to buy the stock at that price instead of the prevailing price. Immediately the CEO makes money. They make a lot of gains. Are you following it?
Yeah.
David? Yeah. So these are what we call frameworks, are like tools that they use to hide.
Yes, Doc. Go ahead.
They use to hide the wealth of CEOs so that the society cannot easily identify them and even to question them. All right. But there are mechanisms that are used to hide CEOs' money. Yakubu, you want to say something?
Doc.
Yeah.
I've been hearing insider trading on the Western West side.
Yeah, that's one of those.
But I'm not too clear about what it is. So can you just explain it to me, please?
Okay, insider trading, and those of you who have idea on this, you can also share. Insider trading is about trends, all right? So, we do trend analysis to predict, what is going to be in the next future. And then, of course, issues about takeovers, all right? So sometimes people within the organization know that the company is going to be put up for, merger or for acquisition, maybe in the next 2 years. And having that information, in money markets and in the capital market, information is crucial, and information is what actually drives the market. So those who are within it can actually give that information and say, this business is going to be out for takeover, or it's going to be out for a measure. And so those within the business can actually make capital gains out of that information, or can make money out of that information. I don't know whether it's clear to you. Who has other points that can share, about insider information, insider trading? Who has other point that can share? But Yakubu, do you understand it?
Doc, I'm okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's hear you.
Sir, I am confused now again.
Yeah.
This is why I'm confused.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of our lectures, we talked about how companies can adapt to the changing environment.
Yeah.
How they can still remain relevant.
Yeah.
And I think the concept of corporate governance is a fallacy. It's one of the strategies that companies are using to remain relevant. Let me give you examples. 5. Microsoft.
Yeah.
The biggest shareholder was Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Amazon, the biggest, Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Tim Cook, one of the biggest shareholders in Apple.
Yeah.
Zoom Lion, Japan.
Yeah.
They all have corporate boards.
Yeah.
And I think you said it clearly when you said it's used to hide the wealth of the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
No more comments.
Okay.
Sir, can I? This is Faisal. Can I come in?
Yeah, Faisal, come in.
I don't know, but your Mesa may have to rethink his position on corporate governance.
Yeah.
It is a serious matter that maybe I should give him the recent case in the NCA matter.
Mm.
2 other persons who are in jail as we speak right now.
Yeah.
They didn't take one Ghana cedi, not even one Ghana cedi. The only reason they are in jail as we speak right now, as he is online and speaking through, they are in jail. These are accomplished individuals. Is because they did not go according to the corporate governance rules. So I'll give you an example. The board chairman, for instance, he met with the former deputy national security coordinator, and they agreed that look, national security, the setup needs so and so system. Then he calls the CEO for NCA. They sit down and they talk. They say, okay, oh, it's fine. You just go write a letter and bring. They give letter to the finance guy and they transfer $4 million US to the company that supplied the device.
Yeah.
The device is in this country. The country has taken custody of the device. But the board, as a board, never met on the matter.
Yeah.
It was just a board member in his capacity as board chair who agreed with the guy, and monies had been expended. And so they didn't take money to chop.
Yeah.
The item is here, and his financial is in this country. But because they did not pay, that conduct was construed to me an act to cause financial loss to the state.
Yeah.
Because the rules and the laws were obeyed.
Exactly.
So corporate governance is such a serious matter.
Yeah.
Maybe I understand speaking from his experience as to where he's working, but it is such a matter that you must ensure that you go by. In this country, because the fact that we may not enforce it fully, as and in any case, I heard Atuesien on Good Evening Ghana say clearly that if they say he has stolen from his bank, he doesn't understand. I'm talking about a private bank.
Yeah.
He is saying that if they say he has stolen money from his bank, he doesn't understand. So clearly, this is a CEO or a board chairman or a bank founder who doesn't appreciate what corporate governance is.
Yeah.
Because if he does, he will know that the deposit that customers come to deposit in his bank doesn't belong to him. So he can be saying a phrase like, "It is my bank. How do I steal from my bank?" CEOs are stealing from bank every day because depositors' monies have been lodged with you to use it for your loan business or whatever or investment so that they can get their interest, which you use
And then what he forgets is that banks don't produce. They are just a tertiary service.
Exactly. Exactly. So this corporate governance we are learning is a serious matter that can land you in jail. And CEOs, like you mentioned, the first example, which is what has made corporate governance a big issue in the world, is the Enron matter. It was such a scandal that it affected more than 36 companies in the chain.
Yeah.
Auditors who audited them, lawyers who advised them, tax advisors who advised them, all of them were all caught and they all conspired in deceiving the public into buying their shares.
Yeah.
So it's a serious matter. Maybe from his experience, he doesn't see it as such, but it is such serious that I will pray that he considers his position on the topic we are studying.
Yeah, we are doing
prayers
for you.
No, I think Faisal got it wrong.
Okay.
You see, what I'm saying is that it is a tool by the rich to continue staying relevant. I didn't say it's not a serious issue. It is a very serious issue which was brought in by who? They adapted. That is all I'm saying. Because the rich continue getting rich. I mean, that collateral damage of these two people who are politically linked is understandable. But imagine the vast majority of businesses that work in the shadows, who are not politically aligned, who were not put in place by any political party.
But
and they come in with corporate governance. But then at the end of the day, the owner of the business is able to direct affairs, even though he's not the board chair.
But that's what Pfizer was saying, that you could do that, but in the end, the law can actually catch up with you for not necessarily, following the tenets of the corporate governance, but pretending to be following. And that's what Faisal is actually pointing out. That you can.
Doc. Doc, just a quick one. I'm trying to understand where Yao is coming from. And I think Faisal has stated his point, but they are missing the point where Yao is coming from. Let me try and understand Yao. In the sense that He's saying that corporate governance in, let me put in quote, the Western world is being practiced and people are benefiting, the CEOs are benefiting with the examples he's given. He cited a local company that, fine, this is what the CEO is doing or the owner is doing, and he's benefiting from it. The issue here is not about what the CEO doing being right or wrong, but I'm thinking about the channels through which they use, both parties use in acquiring whatever wealth that they have.
Yeah.
Remember, we are talking about corporate governance and the legality of it in terms of the offenses which will be meted out to you when caught or when cited for breaching corporate governance regulations.
Yeah.
Now, this is the issue. Most of these banks that failed breached those kind of protocols, hence leading to the collapse of the company, which has led to the legal implications on their firms and the personality of their CEOs. Now, when we go to the foreign companies, we have these same CEOs who are shareholders. What are the laid down procedures that they follow to enrich themselves? If you come to my company and I tell you that for you to acquire this X number of cars, you need to go to A, B, and C to do it. Now, if one person goes through A, B, and C, and I get it, that is what the rule says. That is what the law says, in conformity with the laws of the land, which you have not breached. Hence, you have complied with the laid down procedures in acquiring your legitimate wealth. We're talking about legitimacy here, which all boards have agreed that it is a legitimate process. Now, the issue now comes in whereby I think I am the owner. So because of the idea that I think I am the owner and I bet for the company, I can skip a procedure in acquiring my wealth and therefore trying to hide it in my books or in my daily operations so that nobody sees it. Now, when that is identified, irrespective whether you are the owner or not, you will be found wanting because you've breached a certain procedure, a crucial step, which means that your corporate governance structure is at fault.
Yeah.
Microsoft, Apple, CEO still have their structures in place, and the owners are still enjoying from the fruit of their labor because they've left it there. And whatever be in place, who may know, they've put in a certain clause which allows them to enrich themselves at a certain level, which you cannot do.
Excellent. That's the point.
That is what.
Yeah, that's some of the point that we are raising here. That, for example, stock option, backdating, spring loading could be have been identified as some of the mechanisms that these corporations use to enrich themselves. So at the point where they create those mechanisms, they are not wrong. They are not against the laws, but then the system catches up with them and then make sure that they actually, ascribe them as illegal. So as and when they are found out, the system actually legitimizes it in order that you will now be caught, or you will now be caught as engaged in illegal wealth creation. So when we are having the conversation, go on, Elliot, you want to say?
Doc, that's what I was saying, that this is the point whereby I think has a confusion in the sense that they are doing it and enriching themselves, but on the other hand, when some of us do it, we say it is wrong. But the difference is some of these clauses or some of these things that they have, the mechanisms that they've sort of engineered into their structure, which is not all that visible to the public eye and to the regulators until there is a forensic audit of their structure to identify these issues and loopholes in them.
Now, that's a good point, Elliot. Thanks for that, for eliciting the issue. Before Gideon comes in, let me give you one typical example that's happening right now in this country. We know that a lot of people, I've heard a lot of my students say, oh, Doc, as for me, my salary is too small, but my allowances are plenty. Then they seem to be excited about it. And I asked them, so why are you excited that your allowances are chow than your wages? They say, oh, yeah, the company, but you see, the point is that it is an indirect way of stealing from the state, one, and also cheating you from your future benefits, such as your pensions, all right? Because the firm doesn't actually pay pensions on your allowances. They pay pensions on your actuals, isn't it? Your actual wages. So companies are actually bypassing the the legal way of, paying taxes or even, protecting and securing staff's future welfare by just giving them allowances as opposed to giving them. And these are some of the ways that our system must track and make it illegitimate and make it an offense, but we don't. All right. So these are some of the points that we are raising. Like, how do organizations actually create mechanisms in order to steal and in order to be unfair to the system without we pointing out and without we seeing that it is actually, illegal to do so? So usually they are creating these mechanisms, but then we don't actually check and then when we check and find out, we don't proceed to make them illegal, and they keep doing it. So these are some of the points that we are raising. I don't know whether you guys understand it. Gideon, come in.
Okay, Doc. Just to highlight a bit of what you said. I think as we are motivated by the immediate gratification, and so we don't care about what happens in the future. Whether
that's what saying. These allowances
pensions are being mortgaged. I mean, we are thinking about what's happening now, not what would happen in future.
Yeah.
So that's just by the way.
That's when they,
I want to find out if hello.
Yeah, go on, Gideon.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to find out. But what we are seeing, what we've been discussing, are these forms of COP, for instance, the stock options, backdating, spring loading, bullet dodging, and stay on pay, are all these things illegal? Or they are legal, or they are things that have just been imbibed in the system so that it just would compensate COs, even though they are not legal? I want to find out if they are legal or illegal.
Okay, most cases you could say that they are unethical. All right, they are unethical.
Exactly. Thank you.
The system doesn't identify them to be a legal issue until the state sees its effect on the state, on employees, and on the business climate. And then they could actually push policies to make them illegal. But in most cases, they are actually unethical. They are unfair. They are loopholes that organizations actually find in order to enrich themselves and leave the workers poor. I hope you understand that point, Gideon. Yeah. Gideon, I hope you understand.
I think I do now.
Okay. Cynthia, come in. You wanted to say something.
Sir, I wanted to talk about what the other speaker was talking about. Talking about why he doesn't care about the future benefits and all that. I mean, these are the reasons I'm having so much demonstrations about SNETs and taking people's money. You should be concerned. Some of these ones are, when you look at your statements and all, they consolidate some of your payments and all that, and it's going to affect you in the future. I think we should be concerned about them rather than just taking the salaries.
Yeah, that's right. And
hello, Doc. A minute, please.
Yeah, Gideon, you come in, and we haven't been having conversation. You see, at the union level, at our own organizational level, we are not confronting these issues, and we are not bringing them to the fore of the regulator. In the end, we suffer. So I agree with you, Cynthia. Yeah, Gideon, come in.
Yeah, Doc. I want Cynthia to know that I didn't say I am excited or I'm not concerned about my future. What I sought to say was that as humans as we are just happy about that. We usually tend to not care more about our future, like about what pensions are going to do for us. So I'm not talking about myself, not concerned about the future, but I'm saying that as human, we are more likely to be happy when we are about the salary, because we are like, there's nothing we can do. Exactly, because there's nothing we can do about the salaries. Whether you complain or not, there's nothing to be done about it. But at least you know that your allowances are coming, so you are motivated by that one instead of going to fight your salaries.
And so they use that to hide their illegitimacy.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Guys,
I also believe that you can do something about your salary in the sense that when you take your statements, you should question it if some of these things are not going through. You get it? That's where you have control, so that you are able to track what comes in and what is not going in for you.
David said that even the Bible says, "Give us this day our daily bread." Okay, that's just by the way. Okay, now let's wrap up quickly. So I think I will take Romeo, and then I will take Abra Kadabra, and then we can actually wrap up. All right.
So, hello, Doc.
Yeah.
I will concur with Yao on a lot of things that he said. You know, we live in a country where, if you want to be specific about these issues, let's zero it down to, let's say, where we are now, Ghana. We live in a country where things that people are doing, if you voice it out, they will put you in a certain corner and try to deal with it, because laws in itself don't support a lot of us employees. Yes. So you have CEOs who are stealing from companies, all in the name of, putting certain things there for them to say, oh, okay, this is legitimate to them. But in general, they are not even impacting most businesses that we have in this country. That is how come I'll go back to the point that we don't have companies that has lived generations up to generations, because the structures are definitely not there. They are not there. They are not there. So as an advocacy student, I think what we should be looking at is how to solve this problem if we work hard to be part of policy. But the system itself, it will take time. It will take time. So it's a difficult one to do. And even come to think of this union thing, we have union leaders who are even in bed with management.
Yeah.
Some of them cannot even speak up to the issue. So it's a very dicey game, and we can argue about it. But as advocate students, what are the solutions to some of these problems that we can advocate? Through our various means of communication. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Remy. I think that's why this course is so important. But crucially also that you don't just take it as a course, but you proceed, with education by letting your colleagues know. And I understand. The first day we had a class. I think the class actually created the class.
How are you?
Had a goal that by the time we end the class, we can even form an advocacy to push some of the key things that we are discussing. And it's not necessarily about even fighting the law, but just education by writing features in an article, raising some of these issues that seem not to bother us now. I think it's crucial thing that we should start doing. All right. So it's a good thing that we start discussing it, knowing them, and then start discussing it amongst ourselves. And then, of course, educating the public. All right, guys. Let's wrap up. So, part of the conversation that we have to say on pay, which we don't have it. All right. Elsewhere, there's a huge cry about whether the public should have a say on CEOs' pay. And when we talk about the public having a say on CEOs' pay, it's not only about even public organizations, even private firms. All right. I think that in the heat of the credit crunch, we all know what happened in England. A lot of us, I'm sure, actually came to know what happened in England. For example, Bob Diamond, who was the CEO of Barclays, actually lost a lot of the state. Actually clawed back most of the possessions that he's gotten out of his management of Barclays. I think the same thing happened to the Lloyds Bank guy. In fact, he was even made a sir, and they had to take the sir from him. All right, he was knighted, and they had to take the knightship from him. He lost a lot of wealth that he's actually had. In fact, the state actually demanded that he refunds, I think, 50% of his payout when he was exited. All right, in this country, such conversations, I'm sure people would actually say it's a witch hunt. People would actually would not see the essence of it. But we need education. we need to educate people that, CEO's pay has everything to do with social welfare and the welfare of the country. All right, whether it's a private company or it's a public company, we must have a say in how much the CEO actually, take. And then the clawback policies. When you go to most of the European and American firms, countries, when the CEO had been found to have done some things untoward, they claw back some of their wealth. And a lot of CEOs have actually lost money and lost wealth as a result. It makes them start thinking responsible, and other CEOs start, thinking that, look, you could find your way out, but when you are found out, you would not go scot-free. The state will make demands of you, and we have to actually look at it. Things like transparency, etc., we know. And then some of these issues, impact of the market on corporate control, poison pill, golden parachute, and I'm sure some of you understand some of these theories. But those of you who do not understand, poison pills are, some of the things that CEOs actually do, especially for takeovers and for acquisitions, all right? Acquisitions and then mergers and acquisitions. Sometimes the CEOs are actually influenced to put up their businesses for acquisition because, depending on how the books look, there will be takeover fights, coming from elsewhere. And the CEO will be paid what we call a golden parachute. They will give them huge sums of money because they facilitated the acquisition process, all right? By making the business look weak, they will be paid huge sums of money as a golden parachute. They will jet off from the boat or from the plane that is about to crash, and they will go away with, handsome, cash, and then the other businesses will be suffering. And we've seen examples in our country, all right? Like what we call the Capital Bank guy's case. They had fantastic money, sitting down, and he's even telling the state that he can pay X amount of money back. How did he get that? So I know, and Abracadabra, your hands are up. Let me take your two before we wrap up quickly as we are finishing. Abracadabra.
So mine was to advise my colleagues here, especially on the fact that people are excited that they are being paid allowances and it's not being added to their salaries. We are doing yourself more harm than good. Why do I say this? Because people would want to avoid the fact that they don't want to pay tax to the government. And the taxes are based on your salaries. But you should also know that your provident fund and then your social security are also based on your salaries. So when all these are not put in there to make your salary huge or fat, then you are also losing out on these things. And I think we as a youth or as a class should be more thinking about these things because it is really important and we shouldn't just throw it overboard. So it's more like an advice. Yeah.
Excellent. Good point. Great. Yeah.
Did I raise my hand? Sorry.
Your hands up.
I think kindly continue, Doc. Sorry.
Okay. Excellent. Anyway, so insider trading, we talked about it, and then of course, how to improve corporate governance. In America and the U.S., obviously, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, for example, is one of the popular acts that they've used to actually improve corporate governance perspective. And I think it ties in with the first conversation that we were having earlier when we started the class. Since the central bank actually did the cleanup as a result of corporate governance lapses in Capital Bank, in UT Bank, in all those, and even Namwan, in Men's Gold, and all those examples that we've cited. Is that what act has come out? We don't know. Does anyone know that there's an act out as a result of this cleanup? Can anyone share any idea with us or anything that you know? Has there been an act or has there been a bill that people have pushed as a result of the cleanup? Any idea?
Sir, if I would say, I think the cleanup actually came as a result of the an act that was passed in 2016, if I am not mistaken. That's the Bank of Ghana Act.
Yeah.
Prior to that, the Bank of Ghana couldn't have done the things that it had done. Aside that, too, there is also the liquidation bill, something relating to companies, how to wind down companies and consolidate their assets.
Yeah.
So that was passed, I think, this very year.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we expect a lot more policy guidelines.
Look, I think there is also this corporate governance guidance from the Bank of Ghana.
Yeah.
Just I think after the cleanup exercise. So now every bank would have to follow that corporate governance structure before. So it has to be so down. There are some dictates in it where the chairman of the board cannot serve more than 2 terms, and a host of other dictates in the corporate governance structure.
Yeah.
So I think the cleanup has brought more. Pardon?
Is it only targeted at the banks or general?
Yeah, I think it was Bank of Ghana, so it would be targeted only at the banks.
So these are some of the lapses that we have. So because it's a financial sector cleanup, we're only looking at that. What about the entire space where we know that corporate governance issues are actually across board, and then what about we pushing a much more universal approach, not necessarily universal in terms
That is how it's supposed to be.
but having a policy that can actually cut across industries and then making sure that people can conform to the corporate governance structures. And then, of course, what about education, all right, of the general public, where general public can be educated and then empowered in order that they can even question institutions if they find that they have porous corporate governance issues. All these things, the state is not actually taking steps to do that, all right? So anyway, last one before we close. Abracadabra, your hand is up.
No, sir.
Okay.
I need to put it down.
All right, guys. So I think it's been another fantastic, fruitful discussions. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope the conversation will go beyond here. All right. Okay. So we'll meet next week.
Hello, Doc.
Hi, David.
And as usual, I would like to have some sample questions so we can be trying our hands on.
Yeah. Hey, the last exam, so.
Who is that?
The dog.
Yeah, David.
Because we have been told that somebody will write exam, so.
Forget about exam, David.
Yakubu.
The dog, you said the class, the interaction is good, so I think we should forget about exam.
Yeah. Forget about the exam.
Yeah, and score us by our contributions.
And homeworks.
No,
we all pass.
No homework.
And my preoccupation is to actually get to be excited about the conversation, all right? And adapt so much. So that's my preoccupation, to know that we can actually, have these issues very down to us. Are you with me?
Good. And for that, we have already established it, Doctor.
Please,
can we establish it?
Yes, I sent the earlier recording. I don't know. I hope Nawaz, have you shared them? Is Nawaz here?
Yeah, I've shared them.
Okay, excellent. So I will send this one to Michael.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, dog.
Okay, and enjoy Sunday.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you, and happy Father's Day to you guys too.
Yeah.
Thank you too,
and happy Sabbath.
Do some parties and things for you guys. It's so strange that when
Bridget, you here?
They are still doing virtual.
When is Mother's Day? We do a lot for the women, but when is Father's Day? The women, you guys, you do us some things.
Social distancing.
We are social distancing.
Hey. It was the same during the Mother's Day.
but we say a lot of parties. Okay. Anyway, thanks, guys. Enjoy yourself.
Thanks.
All right.
Bridget. Hello, Bridget.
Yeah.
Happy Sabbath.